Hello everybody, my name is Hannah. I'm with the Upper Chichester Library. Today we are going to crochet a granny square. If you haven't already stopped by to pick up your Crochet to Go kit, it is available here at the library, and it includes everything you need to get started with crochet. Whether you've never crocheted before or you haven't done it in a while, give it a try. It's something to do. It helps you relieve stress. It is proven to help with your brain health, which is important, especially in times like these when we can't really get out and do too much. And it's a really cool way to express yourself. Once you get the basics under control, crocheting can be a lot of fun. Our to-go kits, like I said, include everything you need to get started. It includes, let me show you. There is a packet of information that will help you get started on your crocheting if you've never done it before. It has a guide to help you with your yarn weights and what hooks to use. There is hook conversion charts and a glossary of basic crochet terms in that. Also, there is also a basic crochet guide for beginners that has a lot of really neat information in it. It shows you how to hold your hook, and you know, it gives a pretty in-depth pictorial description of what your stitches should look like. It's pretty useful. I used this kit when I first started crocheting. It was very helpful. There is also patterns included in the kit. This one includes the granny square kit pattern. It has again a picture of, a completed granny square, as well as basic instructions. I will also in a later video go over how to read patterns, or if you need help you can always swing by. The library is open for curbside assistance. We are open Monday through Friday from 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. and on Saturdays from 10 to 2. So if you need help, feel free to stop by. I can explain basic stuff. I can't get too hands-on right now, but I can at least answer your questions, or always leave a message either through the library's Facebook or email or call. Our phone number is on our Facebook page as well as our website. So again, let's go back to what is in this kit. I showed you the crochet guide and the pamphlet. You will get a skein of yarn. This is a number 4 worsted weight, or a medium weight, that is also described in your kit. All of the kits include a worsted weight yarn because that's the easiest one to start with. The kit also comes with a size H or 5mm hook, a darning needle. It's plastic, so there's not too much of a risk of injury. You can still get hurt, so if you're going to let a child do this, please supervise them or remove this. Same with this. It is a tool, so if you're going to let your child do this is a family-friendly craft, but they need supervision. And then these little stitch markers also come with the kit. They are plastic safety pin style stitch markers. They are easy to use. I love these, and you can buy them in bulk fairly cheap. So, but if you don't want to use these, you can use whatever. I've seen people tie other pieces of yarn into it. I've seen people use bread twisters, paper clips, whatever have you. But I am going to give you 5 of these to get started. Let me put my kit away. The only thing that I have not included in your Crochet to Go kit is a pair of scissors. But you could pick them up at the dollar store if you don't already have a set, or if you just want a set that's specifically for your yarn. I did not include a set of scissors, but that's for safety reasons. Again, if you want to get started and you've never crocheted before, please feel free to stop by the library, pick up a kit. They are free. And if you picked one up already, thank you. And if you want a friend to join you in our tutorial, have them stop by, spread the word, spread the love, you know. Let's get started on the granny square. We're going to start by making a slip knot. And I'm not going to go over the very basic beginners crochet stuff. I will make a separate video for that because that will get very lengthy. We're going to start with our slip knot. That's how I do mine, slip knot, so you can adjust it. And I'm gonna tell you guys now, like, I know, first of all, I am left-handed and I crochet right-handed. I do not hold my hook like a normal person. When you are watching me crochet, pay attention to what my hook and my yarn is doing, not what my hand is doing. We're gonna start by chaining 3. Some people start these with the magic circle. We are going to do this by, excuse me, my yarn got all messed up. We are going to do this with the chain 3 method. So we're going to chain 3. 1, 2, 3. Your chain should look like that. If I can get this to focus, your chain will look like that. Don't make your stitches too tight. If you feel like you crochet way too tight, you can either go up a hook size or just practice not getting your, make chains and pay attention to how tight and loose your stitches are. Okay, so after you chain 3, we're going to take our hook and put it in the very first hook next, this stitch next to the knot. And we are going to slip stitch, and you slip stitch by yarning over and pulling through both of those hoops on your hook. It should look like this. It's going to be a little bit tight, but it's workable. Now you got to get under this loop down here because you want, it will separate a little. You want to poke through the center of that loop that we just made. If you find like this is too thick for you or too tight of a ring to get through, you can always do a 4th chain before you slip stitch it together. So now we are going to yarn over. Oh, did we chain 3? I did not chain 3. After you put your circle together, after you slip stitch, you want to chain 3. This is going to act as your first double crochet. That is the stitch we are going to be doing in the center of this ring. So we have our chain 3, we have our circle. It kind of looks like a little keyhole with a little tail. You are going to yarn over. You are going to go through this center of the chain we hooked together. You're going to yarn over. You're going to pull through. For this double stitch, we have 3 loops on our hook. You're going to yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2. And if you can see what's going on, you now have 2 on your ring. We're going to yarn over again and do 1 more double crochet. That's a total of 3 double crochets in this ring. Okay, because remember, our chain 3 acts as our first crochet, double crochet in this round. So now what we're going to do, now that this is our first cluster or our first shell, depending on the pattern you're reading, it will refer to it as either or. This is our first shell, so we are going to chain 2. 1, 2, and you're going to go right back into this center loop again, and we're going to do 3 more. 1, 2, 3. I'm crocheting a little bit slow today. It has been a while, excuse me. Now I'm going to show you this. We have 2 clusters done, and see what that chain 2 does is it starts to box off the look. It squares it. This is how we get our square, by chaining 2. If you chain too many, you're going to have too many gaps. If you don't chain enough, it's going to be super tight, and it's not going to, it'll look more like a circle. And depending on the pattern you're using will depend on how they tell you to do this. This is the way I learned. This is how I am going to teach you. So again, we have 2 clusters done. At the end of every cluster, when you're turning a corner, this first round we will do chain 2 in between our clusters. So we're going to chain 2, and I am going to complete 2 more clusters because there are 4 clusters to this first round. So I'm going to finish that, and then we'll move on to row 2. Chain 3 double crochets, chain 2, 1 more set, one, 2, 3. Okay, so I have now 4 clusters. My square is almost complete. You'll see it kind of looks like a little, let me pull my hook out so you can see that a little bit better. Kind of, it's an incomplete square at the moment. I'm going to show you how to finish off that first row. We are going to chain 2 like we do between our corner clusters, and we are going to slip stitch into our 3rd chain on the chain 3 row that we started with. This is why I gave you this stitch markers. If you want to pop, when you chain up your rows, if you want to pop a stitch marker in the top of that 3rd chain, it will help you know where that stitch needs to go when you're slip stitching, so you don't end up with an uneven end. And throughout this row I've been holding down my little tail, because you always want at least a 6-inch tail unless the pattern calls for longer. If you're going to use your tail to sew something together, you want it a little bit longer, follow the pattern. But for this I did a 6-inch tail, and if you don't want to have to sew it in, hold it down and crochet around it as best you can. So we're going to pop this slip stitch in the 3rd chain on our hook, or in that stitch, yarn over, pull through both. That completed, that's the back of my square, that completed your first row. So now what we're going to do is we're going to chain up to our 2nd row. We are going to chain 1, 2, 3. We have 3, just like when we started. I lost my train of thought. Now that we have this chain 3, we are going to move on, because this is the beginning of this square. We're going to finish here. So what you want to do, you've chained up, you've chained 3, you always chain 3, and when you're doing a granny square where you end up is going to change a little bit. So for this one, we're going to chain 2 more. 1, 2, because this is a traditional granny square. We're not going to do the closed off one, but I will show you how to do that later. We're going to yarn over, and we're going to pop a cluster of 3 double crochets in this corner. 1, 2, 3, and this is a corner, so we are going to chain 2, 1, 2, and you want to put another cluster of 3 in this set because this is considered a corner. One, 2. Oh, my yarn got stuck. 3. Now we're going to chain 1 because this is, we are going to go from this corner that we just completed to our next corner. So we're going to chain 1 so that we have a space to put a cluster in the next round, and you will see what I mean when I get there. So now that we have chained 1, we are going to again do 1 cluster, which is 3 double crochets. So yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2. Here's another cluster. We're going to chain 2, yarn over, pop another, that was our first cluster in the corner, we chained 2, we're going to put another cluster in that same corner. 1, 2, 3. There is our second corner, and you see how my first corner is here. I have my 2 clusters with that chain 3 separating. I chained 1 here, that gives us an empty space. We are going to put a cluster in that on the next round, which is why we wanted to chain 1 in between. So we're going to chain 1 again because we just finished this corner of clusters, and we're going to do 2 clusters with the chain 2 in between in this next corner. So 3 double crochets, 1, 2, 3. We're going to chain 2, 1, 2, and we are going to put another cluster of 3 right in that corner. 1, 2, 3. This is where we're at. We have 3 of our 4 corners done. Again, we are going to chain 1, and I'm going to do that last corner, but I am going to show you, because this first cluster that the chain 3 that we started with on that round is where we're going to slip stitch into. So we are going to go ahead and do our first cluster of 3, 1, 2, 3. That first cluster is complete. I am going to do my chain 2. And now, instead of doing a cluster of 3 for this final cluster in this row, we are only going to do 2 double crochets, and I will show you why in a second. So pop your 2 double crochets in there. 1, 2, and you see how they're separated right now. This was my first cluster of 3 in this hole. I chained 2. I did my cluster of 2. I am going to slip stitch into this one. You're going to count up. First stitch, second stitch, and you're going to pop a slip stitch in this third chain from the hook, or from the bottom of that. You've got 1, 2, 3. That's our third stitch. We are going to slip stitch into there. So we are going to go into that hole. We're going to yarn over. We're going to pull that through, and then we're going to pull this loop closest to your hook through the loop on the bottom, and that completed our hole. We are in square form again. You are going to go through moments where it doesn't quite look like a square. Finish your row, it should square itself off. So this is where we are at. This is 2 rows completed. Technically 3 if you count the chain in the beginning, but we're not. So this is our first 2 rows. Well, I'm going to teach you how to do the first 4 rows today. If you want to continue and make a giant granny square blanket, I can just keep going with the pattern that I'm giving you. It's continuous. How many in-betweens? We'll get to this. Okay. So for row 3, we are going to chain 3 like we've been doing at the beginning of each row. 1, 2, 3. Now instead of chaining an additional 2, we're going to leave it at the chain 3, and I will show you why. You see these gaps that we created in between the corners? We are going to put stitches, clusters in there. That is our building technique. The more rows you do, the more of these in-betweens you're going to have. It will add on. You'll have one here this row, one here, one on all 4 middles. So we're going to, this is our first double crochet, our first double crochet. So we are going to put 2 more stitches in this center, or in this chain 1 space. 1, 2, and you will see that that chain 3 acts as a double crochet because that completes that cluster. It does look a little bit wonky right now. It'll work out in the end, I promise you. So now that we have done this, we are going to chain 1 and begin working in our corner. So in this corner, we're going to do 2 clusters. We're going to do our first cluster now. So put 3 double crochets in this corner. 1, 2, 3. That's our first cluster. We are going to do our chain 2 because it is a corner. So we're going to chain 2. And then we are going to pop 3 double crochets in the same gap. So 1, 2, 3, 3, we have our corner. Now we're going to chain 1, and we are going to pop 1 cluster into this chain 1 space. This is not a corner. Our corner is over here. This is our corner. This is not a corner. So we are only going to do 1 cluster of 3 in this stitch, in this chain 1 space. So we're going to yarn over and begin our 3 double crochets. 1, 2, 3, chain 1. We're going to do our corner, so we're going to do cluster of 3, 1, 2, 3, chain 2, 1, 2. We're going to chain, pop another cluster of 3 double crochets in our corner. 1, 2, 3. We're going to chain 1, work in our center, our dividing chain, our chain 1 space. We're going to do 1 cluster in there, one, two, three. We have a chain 3. We are going to chain 1 again. You always want to do a chain 1 in between. All right, so we're gonna work on our corner now, because look, this is where we're at. We've done a corner, we've chained 1, we've done a cluster of 3, we've chained 1, and we've done another corner which has cluster of 3, chain 2, cluster of 3. We are going to finish off this corner by popping in our cluster of 3, chain 2, all right, that is our cluster of 3. So we're going to chain 2 because this is a corner, and we're going to put 3 more stitches in that 3 more double crochets in that corner. 1, 2, 3. We've just rounded another corner. So now we are almost done. We are going to chain 1, go into our stitch, our chain 1 space here, and we're going to put 1 cluster of 3 double crochets in there. 1, 2, 3, we're going to chain 1, and we are going to work our last row, our last corner into this corner. So we are going to do a cluster of 3, chain 2, and another cluster of 3. So 1, 2, 3, chain 2, put another cluster of 3 in this hole. 1, 2, 3. And that completes this row, except for one part. I'm going to show you. We are going to chain 1, and now we need to slip stitch again. If you marked your chain, the top of your chain 3, we are going to put a stitch right in the top of that chain 3. It's a slip stitch. This finishes our row. So let me remove my hook because we have one more row to go that I'm going to show you how to do. But you can see that it is building now. It's backwards. I don't want you to see the little tail. It is building. We have our first 1, 2, 3, 4 in the center. Our second row is our edges that's helping build our corners. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4 corners, and now we've started adding our extensions in between in our chain 1 loops. So for this 4th round, we are going to have our 4 corner clusters with the chain 2, and we're going to have 2 transition clusters. So you're going to finish this cluster, chain 1, pop a cluster of 3 stitches in here, chain 1, pop another 3 stitches in here, another cluster right in here, and then we're going to chain 1 again and then do a corner. Let us start on that row. Let me pop my hook back in. We'll twist it again. Alright. So I'm going again, beginning a new row, chain 3, 1, 2, 3. This one falls in the middle at the beginning of a cluster, so we're going to chain our 4th, and we are going to start our cluster. 1, 2, 3. We are going to chain 1 and begin our corner. Chain 1, cluster of 3, 1, 2, 3, chain 2, 1, 2, and then we're going to chain or double crochet another cluster of 3 in our corner. 2, 3, we just chained 1, so we're going to put 3 double crochets, 1, 2, 3, chain 1, and remember we have a second transitional cluster to do this row. 1, 2, 3, chain 1, start your corner, cluster of 3, 1, 2, 3, chain 2, put your other cluster of 3 in that corner, 1, 2, 3. We just completed that corner, so we're going to chain 1 and begin putting a cluster in this transition row. So 1, 2, 3, 'Gonna move on to our second transition row. So chain 1, cluster of 3 right here. 1, 2, 3, chain 1, and we're going to start and we're going to work on our corner. Sorry, there's noise in the background. 1, 2, 3, chain 2, 1, 2, do another cluster of 3 because this is a corner. 1, 2, 3. We are going to chain 1, cluster of 3 in this transitional chain 1 space. 1, 2, 3, chain 1, another cluster of 3, 1, 2, 3. Now we are going to chain 1 and work in our last corner of this row. So we're going to do a cluster of 3. 1, 2, 3, chain 2, 1, 2, pop another cluster of 3, 1, 2, 3. That corner is complete. Now to finish this row off, we have to do the same thing we did in row 2 when we had to add those 2 extra stitches before we connected to our chain 3. So that is what we are going to do. We are going to chain 1 because we're transitioning, yarn over, and we're going to put 2 double crochets in this stitch right here. 1, 2, and then it's separated again, but you can see this chain 2 here, and we have, or our 2 double crochets are here. This is our chain 3. We are going to count up 1, 2, 3. Now we did make a 4th chain in this one, but that is our chain 1 that moves to the next stitch. So you want to count up from the bottom 1, 2, 3, and put it in the 3rd loop. Slip knot that, pull through. Now I'm only showing you how to do the first 4 rows because it repeats itself after that. I do have the written pattern here in our kit if you want to stop by and pick up a kit, or if you just want the pattern, or you know, feel free to call, stop by the library. I can get those things for you. I'm going to show you how to fasten this off. What I like to do is, again, I make a tail of at least 6 inches long. This is just so it doesn't unravel. Now, some people knot them. I don't. Like, before you cut it, you can pop a chain in that kind, and then just pull your loop all the way through after you cut it. It kind of helps, and then just tug on it a little bit, not too tight because you don't want to make a weird lump in your blanket or whatever you're turning this into. Granny squares actually have a lot of different uses. I will have to, one of our next upcoming videos is a video on how to hook these together. I will show you how to hook them together traditionally in the square pattern, but there are many different ways. Like, I have seen people converting these into little holders for their masks, where, you know, you can fold it or whatever have you. You know, see, this folds up really nicely. You can line this. This could be a single granny square project where you turn it, you know, put a little, sew it together, put a little button. You have, if you line it, you can have a coin purse, whatever have you, mask holder, put a keychain on the end of it, attach it to your keys. You always got something to put your mask in, or, you know, change purse or whatever have you. You can hook these together to make a blanket. I have made beach bags. I don't have any here at the moment. I will bring, for the video where I teach you how to hook them together, I will show you different ways to use these granny squares. But they are very versatile. They are not boring at all. I love them. And you don't have to do a single color. You can change the colors throughout this. They look great in multiple colors. If you do make a granny square, I would love for you to inbox me a photo of one and show me your completed project, you know, or email it to director@upperchichesterlibrary.org. And the director will be able to see your completed project. Also, let her know that she used my tutorial. Hopefully, you know, I was able to explain things clear enough. If not, I do have the packets here with written explanations of how to do things. Thank you for joining my live stream today with my crochet along. I hope to see you again for the next one. The dates are listed in this event. There are multiple dates listed, and I'm pretty sure there are more to come. I will make that instructional video from the beginning on the different stitches, and this way you can get all caught up if you've never crocheted before and this was a little bit too advanced for you. But I will make a beginner's guide to crocheting. So again, thank you very much for joining us. Hope to see you again soon. Enjoy the rest of your day. Stay safe, y'all.